Welcome to ETMA Tech Talk, the podcast that unveils forces shaping the future of tech. In each episode, we bring together visionary leaders, forward-thinking innovators, and game-changing experts who are transforming the enterprise tech landscape. Listen to insider perspectives, dive into bold stories of digital transformation and strategic breakthroughs. Here is your host, ETMA's Managing Director, Joe Basili.
Mobile technology drives enterprise transformation, but how do Fortune 500 companies keep their workforce connected, secure, and productive without losing sleep over device logistics and support nightmares? In this episode, we host Stratix. We're going to talk about how they're trusted by FedEx, Starbucks, top healthcare providers, and others to handle mission-critical deployments at scale. Stratix lives and breathes end-to-end mobile lifecycle management, solving headaches from device procurement, staging, 24-hour support, sustainability, and more. Today, I'm delighted to have Gina Daniel-Lee, VP of Strategic Alliances and Partnerships. She is the go-to partner for large-scale mobile deployments. She builds the partnerships that keep Fortune 500 workforces connected, supported, and ready for what's next. And Gina knows partnerships are the fuel that keeps this ecosystem humming. Welcome, Gina.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Talk to us a little bit about Stratix and what your firm specializes in.
Joe, we are a little bit of a best kept secret in that we have been a management mobility services company for 42 years. Now, granted, mobile was a lot different 42 years ago, right? But we have really made a practice of building out services to support the ever evolving and changing mobile ecosystem. We started 42 years ago as a barcode consulting company and then got asked by one of the leading technology OEMs in the mobile space to become a reseller. And we did. We started with what I call table stake reseller services, hardware acquisition, staging, kitting, activation, but really where we have excelled, where we've invested heavily, and where we differentiate is in what we call day two. What happens after a solution is in the field? How are you going to support it? Who are you going to call if there's an issue? How are you going to get it repaired if it breaks? How are you going to manage it? And that's really what we've been focused on. We also focus in the very large enterprise, and we've been very fortunate to have cross-industry and cross-vertical expertise. And the reason why that is because we look at the world through the lens of the use case, not the vertical per se, but the use case.
In terms of use case or verticals, are there specific use cases that you find are very attractive today?
So anything that is a critical line of business application is a perfect fit for us, where there's mission critical activity, job functions happening at the line of business level. If you think about it in those terms, there's a lot of cross-pollination that takes place. What I mean by that is we've been serving the airlines for years, probably 15, 18 years. When you fly on a plane and a flight attendant comes in, takes your order for a beer and she swipes your credit card, that transaction is mobile point of sale. If you think about how almost every quick serve restaurant like a Chick-fil-A has taken the transaction into the lane, that use case is mobile point of sale. Two very different industries, but very similar use case. And so that's kind of how we've looked at the world through that lens of use case and how do they cross-pollinate across verticals and how do we continue to leverage our level of expertise into net new business opportunities for Stratix.
Does that into certain channel partners or partnerships that you're really interested in partnering with from a buying and selling perspective?
It does, because customers are asking us all to do more. And when you get in with a customer, they ask you, what else can you do? And we're fortunate that we have a very robust portfolio of products and services, but there's no one that can be everyone to all people. Aligning with partners who are best of breed in things that you're not really makes sense. It makes economical sense. It makes go to market sense. And some of the areas where we have had some real success in partnering have been in the areas of telecom expense management or outside field installation, carrier connectivity services, things that we're not necessarily going to invest in to grow organically at Stratix because we just don't necessarily have that level of expertise. But we know some really great strategic companies that do, that we've been able to partner with to bring those services to bear with a Stratix wrapper around it that is very important to our customers.
Gina, how do you determine, okay, this one, I think it's going to be a time sink versus one where you're like, oh, we got to get all of this is going to be good for us?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say about that, Joe, is it's probably important to give a little bit of just how do I think about partnerships? Because for me and for Stratix, it's really super important that we have strategic, high level relationships with our partner, not transactional buy and resell only. And so, what that means is identifying quickly, okay, there's going to be some partners that you just have a buy and resell, but ones you're going to focus on are going to be the ones who want to align at every level of your organization, want to have like real deep conversations around what are we trying to accomplish and how are we going to get there, putting a strategic eye onto the relationship so that we can build and grow. It's also really important in our organization to have partners that are bi-directional, that we're bringing them into opportunities and they're looking at how they can leverage the Stratix engine too. Anytime you've got that bi-directional engagement, it always makes that partnership stronger and enables both of you to do more. It's kind of the 1+1 = 3 by really looking at it from that lens.
Where do you see some of the biggest blind spots when it comes to supporting mobility?
I think I'll go back to that theme of day two. I think that is a real blind spot, that there are a lot of partners who can buy and resell technology, stage provision, activate, and then they just walk away. I think that's a disservice to the customer and it's a disservice to the company because you're not becoming sticky. You're not becoming strategic. You've done a one and done. I'm done with what I told you I was going to do and I'm going on to the next thing. And finding new business is really important to all of us. So don't get me wrong, but I think you can do both. I think you can have existing business that you continue to support, going deep and wide, understand, giving a more broad service offering to also looking at other use cases within that customer set, but also looking at net new to continue on a trajectory to growth.
So, what sort of nightmares or maybe an opportunity because you were in there looking at day two?
It might be important to define day two for our listeners to make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. Day two services for us is really around lifecycle management, so spare pool and repair. It's around help desk. It's around MDM or UEM, whichever acronym you want to use, management and support. So those are the things. And then asset visibility, that all of that falls under day two for us. We have had instances where a partner has deployed all of those things, but maybe doesn't have help desk capabilities, and a deployment from a user acceptance perspective fails because the customers don't have anybody to call to ask questions about the new solution and technology that they've just been handed. That's one example. Another may be there wasn't a contemplation on managing the devices from a UEM perspective. There's all sorts of security things that play into that. There's moves, adds, and changes of devices. There's the pushing and pulling of new applications that may not have been contemplated. Or maybe they decided to do it in-house and they don't have the team to support it, where they just think, oh, I'll give Joe a second hat to wear for his night job to go along with his day job, and we'll let him manage this. We see a lot of failure in that, where folks will call Stratix and say, help, I can't support this.
Can you give us some examples of partnerships where you've kind of helped fill gaps in your partners' portfolios and you come together as a team to implement it for a client?
I talked about some of the things that we outsource to partners. There are a ton of examples where partners are using Stratix, and it's typically around deployment. We do a lot of help desk support for other partners that would seemingly be competition for us because they haven't invested in building up that help desk expertise, and we can answer the phone as anybody. Logistics, lifecycle management is really messy business. Managing the ins and outs of somebody's mobile fleet is really messy and complex. We do a lot of outsourcing of our lifecycle management services as well. And then a UEM would be the third piece that we outsource a lot because folks just don't want to build up that level of expertise. There's so many different players in the UEM field, but we have invested heavily in understanding all the major players to a really deep level. That's another service that we outsource a lot. And we outsource to, or white label as we call it. We do it with some major software companies, we do it with some major carriers, and we do it with some of our competition. I love where the market is right now in that, and ETMA certainly helps with that. Just that collaboration and that networking. The industry has become so much more mature in being able to look at the world through the lens of how do we collaborate, even in a seemingly what could be competitive nature. I think there's been a lot of maturity in the market that has allowed us to figure out the swim lanes to do that and do it
Nice.
effectively.
What other trends are you seeing as it relates to organizations that have IT resource issues and they're looking at mobility support and where they're going with it?
I think one of the things that's really changed in the distributed workforce, but it's also kind of moving into other markets like education, is folks are going away from a shared device scenario. We're moving more and more to a one-to-one, which means a couple of things. One, it means a higher revenue stream for partners like Stratix because you're deploying multiple tens of thousands of devices now. Pick an industry, big box retail, airline, field services. But education, thanks to the pandemic, also has ended up going to a one-for-one scenario, which is increasing the number of devices that are going into K through 12. We support the largest school district in Georgia. We support about 143 schools. That's north of 250,000 devices at this point because we've gone to a one-to-one type of scenario. And that's one of the biggest trends that we're seeing today that's contributing to growth.
Wow, that's really something. This whole idea that as opposed to having a device that's assigned to a school or to a job role, it's assigned to the individual person then.
That's right.
And then how do you see artificial intelligence playing in this field?
In my opinion, that's the $1 million question because you think about AI, like you and I know how we use it in our personal life. We may even use it in business to look something up or write a paper or make an email sound a little bit better. But we've done a lot of internal discussions around how do we use it more effectively in our business as a whole. And then how do we monetize it from a customer perspective? So, internal to our business, we're looking at things like how do we use it in our marketing efforts? How can our marketing folks get smarter in leveraging AI? And we actually got an RFP recently for a new customer who found us on ChatGPT.
Oh,
Isn't
love
that
it.
crazy to think about? Yeah, which is really cool. And I think it was because of the work that our marketing team had put into kind of feeding the engine. So I recently was asked to be part of an AI cohort for a couple of days, like talking about AI in business. And it really got my wheels turning in terms of how you could monetize it. And a couple of things I thought about. There's still, especially in field services, there's still a lot of paper-based work effort that happens. If a company wants to move to a mobile device, all of that paper has to get consolidated into an application to go on the mobile device so that worker can still do his job. And so I think AI could be really useful in helping to translate from paper to mobility, those instructions or work orders. Another could be through our help desk as our customers are starting to deploy AI into their businesses. I heard of one very large company, a worldwide consulting company, that failed the first time they tried to launch AI into their business. And it was because once these folks got AI capability in their tools, they didn't know how to use it and they had no one to call to ask. So my wheel started turning that maybe there's a way to monetize our help desk by being that support arm to large corporations. The other thing I thought of is there's the sunset of Windows 10 and all those new laptops and devices that are going to replace all the millions of devices that are on Windows 10 are all AI compatible. So we could resell and support those devices and still support on the help desk side. None of those things have been put into place, but just as we've started to think through how AI could be used in our business and to monetize it, that's some of the things that we've been thinking through.
Some people are saying AI may have an impact on the refresh rate of devices. Do you foresee that, or do you think that's
It
overstated?
could. It could. The sunset of Windows 10 is a great example of that.
What's some of the most exciting projects that you've been part of that you can tell us about?
Mm. I think the school project for the county here in Georgia has been one that's really exciting. Because it's in our own backyard. So it's really great to be able to say that we're supporting the community that our office is actually in. We work with them on their foundation, we work with them on school drives and things like that, in addition to supporting their mobile devices. So that's been super fun. We also implemented a pickup and delivery solution for this school so that our drivers were routed appropriately to effectively get to all the schools we need to touch. And that was something that was fairly new for us. And that was super exciting to implement as well.
So, what's the one piece of mobile tech that you wish would just disappear forever?
I wish my
Yes,
phone would go away forever,
for
right?
sure. No darn text.
Exactly. I embrace technology. I don't know that I want anything to go away, but maybe less of some things sometimes would be good.
Are there any trends that you think other leaders are really paying attention to?
Well, I talked about AI, which is certainly a big trend. We talked about the movement to one, and we talked about leveraging new partnerships in new ways. I mean, I think from a leadership perspective, at least in my role, managing our partnerships, I'm always looking at the world through the lens of what's next. What does Stratix need to bring to our customers in order to continue to be relevant? And more often than not, that is going to involve a partner, some kind of partnership, whether it's an OEM for a new piece of technology. So always have to be looking at the world through the lens of what's next. I think that's one thing that is super important as we look to continue to grow and evolve as companies and continue to be relevant.
How does that tie into any tangible goals that you have for the next year in terms of your focus with your lens on what's next?
We've done a good job internal to Stratix to really triangulate our vertical approach from a sales, marketing, and partner perspective, right? And I'm one leg of that stool from a partnership perspective. So I think that gives a challenge to me and my team and a real goal for the next year to make sure that I'm filling all of the gaps from a partner perspective so that we can continue to be relevant in the verticals that we support, but also that we can offer new use cases as our customers are evolving. Whoever that customer may be, whether it's a quick serve restaurant, whether it's a retailer, making sure that we have the right partnerships in place to continue that vertical expansion and growth of our new customer base.
Wow, that's exciting.
Absolutely. Every quarter when I do a partner review and throw up my partner slide, it's super dynamic because it's always growing and expanding, which is good. People want to do business with us because of the success that we've had and the longevity of our business and the value that we provide to the enterprise.
For sure. So, if you had to walk on around in Times Square with a billboard, or you wanted to tell us something memorable about your firm, in addition to the longevity and day two customer service, is there anything else that you would add that would be memorable? Maybe something funny or an interesting story?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind that's not funny is just our ability to scale, right? We stage and provision 40,000 devices on a monthly basis. We repair 30,000 devices on a monthly basis. If I was going to walk around Times Square with a billboard, it would be that, Stratix is a great place to be. We're a great company. We are an organization that is truly customer obsessed. And customer obsessed for us means the end user customer, but it also means our partners. That is the center of our core values as a company and something that I'm really proud of. And I know all of our teammates are really proud of it. The culture that we have is second to none. And so that's the billboard I would hold up in Times Square, actually.
Are there any early life experiences that set you on the path, or things that you did as a kid that maybe resemble what you do today?
It's funny when you ask me that, Joe, because if somebody had asked me, especially when I was in high school, what I was going to do with my life, I had no idea. I
Right.
was going to go to college and get a business degree because I could do something with that, right? But I had this vision in my head, no lie, that when I grew up, I was going to fly around and meet people.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of what I do, right? I
Yeah.
fly around and meet people. I had no idea what that meant then. I had no idea that I would be in technology, but that ended up being a foreshadowing of what the next 30 years of my life was going to be.
That's crazy. So if you were to go back in time, you'd say, "Hey, you're on the right track."
I would say I was on the right track. I think about this question a lot. Like, what would you tell your younger self? In fact, I hosted a panel recently and I asked all of our Stratix leaders this question. And then somebody turned it around back on me. The question, or what I would tell my younger self, is find your voice. Find your voice as soon as you can, right? It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female, although I think to some extent, probably it happens to females more often, that we don't realize we have a seat at the table or don't realize that we have something to say. There's a right and a wrong way to say it, but find your voice so that you have an impact, you have perspective, you're giving fresh ideas, and don't be afraid to use it.
That's some fabulous advice. I think that's really on the mark in terms of just setting somebody younger on the right path. What do you think would surprise them most about our discussion and potentially your career path that you took?
I think maybe my career path, only because I don't really care about technology, which sounds really weird since I'm in technology, right?
Right.
I care about what technology does for us. I like it that I could do self checkout in the grocery store or at Home Depot. I like it that I could go to Macy's and Nordstrom's and buy a pair of shoes in the shoe department, and the associate doesn't have to go to the back and rummage around for 10 minutes to tell me if the shoe that I want is available. She could stand right there with her mobile device and tell me if they've got it in a size 8 black with 4-inch heel or whatever it is. I love what technology does for us, but I would have never have seen myself in the technology space per se.
So the CES show, Consumer Electronics Show, at the beginning of the year, that's not your go-to place where you're trying to figure out what new tech am I going to throw into my bag.
I have a team of design engineers who work for me that called our specialty products group, and that's their gig, and I let them have it. They come back and tell me the new stuff. My gig is more NRF. Let's go. Look at how technology is helping us in the retail space.
Yeah, that sounds great. You mentioned the idea of supporting the community before.
We have a partnership with Jonathan's Landing Foundation that is focused on work for autistic adults or children who are just becoming adults. And we have partnered with them to provide asset disposition and repair services. But I've worked very closely with them and their leadership on helping to message their technology division, Tectonic. I remember sitting one morning having coffee right after my daughter had graduated. She's an only child, and so I got a lot of time that I'm not working. I remember thinking, I'd really like to do something more philanthropic. And lo and behold, the next week, my CEO introduced me to these people. And I was like, wow, okay, I guess here's my sign. It's been really great to get to know them and to watch their passion and their drive and the growth that they're experiencing. I'm super blessed and fortunate and grateful to be part of it.
What position does your daughter play in soccer?
Keeper. Yeah.
Nice. That's a tough one,
It
but
is
a
a
really
tough one.
important position.
Yes, it's a tough one, and she has no fear, and she's amazing at it. And you have to be a little bit tough as a parent because you see your kid jump and dive and
Yes.
all the things.
And then with the autistic children, so it's focused mostly on that transition phase between helping them move into adulthood.
The foundation itself is creating a community in Florida where these children that are transitioning to adulthood can live and work and they can contribute. So, for example, if someone is interested in cooking, they can help cook for the property. If they are interested in landscaping, they could do that. And then there's the technology division called Tectonic that is a part of the foundation's work. And so if somebody is interested in learning how to repair laptops or tablets or phones, they can get the education to do that. So they do really, really good work. It's exciting.
I mean, that's a really tough time. And of course, with special needs children, it's tough because unlike children like your daughter and my kids, they transition and they go off to college and the next step is pretty clear. Whereas with autistic children, it's really one where you have to contemplate and think, what is the next step?
Right.
How can firms, if they want to get in touch with you or learn more about Stratix, how would they do that?
Yeah, so you can visit us at stratixcorp.com. Our marketing team is second to none. There's a lot of good information and content, and we even do use case videos and things of that nature. It's a great way to learn about us. But then hit me up on LinkedIn. Would love to chat with whoever. Love meeting new people, love meeting new partners. Would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, this brings us to the end of another episode. We'll see you on the next one. I really learned a lot, and I think our audience will really benefit from some of the sage advice that you gave to people. Find your voice. I thought that was really great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun. Thanks so much.
So if you enjoyed this conversation, let us know your thoughts and comments. We read every single one, and we love hearing from you and how these ideas maybe spark action for you. So thank you very much, Gina.
Great.
ETMA Tech Talk podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes research, collective wisdom, and action. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions from the market's top problem solvers, making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.